Hi everyone, welcome to Module 2. In Module 2, you're going to be reading chapters 4 and 5. You'll have your Applia work that you need to complete for chapters 4 and 5, and you have discussion board number 2. With discussion board number 2, you're going to be focusing on the following. For discussion board number 2, remember to focus on your initial post, which should be 3 to 4 paragraphs, must contain an in-text citation and reference in APA formatting. You need 2 peer responses, which can be any of the posts that I've posted. Your first post is due by Thursday, and the 2 peer responses are due by Saturday. Now the question that I'm asking is, why is it important that prices are flexible in our economy? This deals with supply and demand. Do you think the government should control the level of prices? What would be the implications of the government controlling prices? How do you explain the law of demand in a recent purchase that you've made? And then I want to analyze 2 goods and services that you think are elastic and inelastic in your daily life that you have purchased or not. But with the question, make sure to relate it to the characteristics of elasticity. That's very important. Relate to the characteristics of elasticity. If you need additional resources or if you need me to pre-grade your work, just send it to me through email, as I'm more than willing to do so. But for chapter 4, we're dealing with supply and demand. Now with supply and demand, we're dealing with demand, which is looking at buyers, whereas supply is looking at sellers. And the law of demand is an inverse relationship between the price of a good and the quantity demanded. Now the quantity demanded, and let me go to this demand curve here. It's going to freeze up on me, I know. There we go. Here's a demand schedule. When the price is $1, people are willing to buy 14 of them. When the price goes to $2, people are only willing to buy 12 of them. You notice the quantity demanded will decrease. Now, one of the things that really gets people very confused is the difference between a change in demand and a change in quantity demanded. A change in demand will be brought about by the factors that we're going to focus on, and a change in quantity demanded is going to be brought about by a change in price. So one factor would be the change in the number of buyers. More buyers present in the market, that means there's going to be an increase in the demand. Demand will shift to the right. Income. Changes in income will cause the demand curve to change. Changes in related goods. That's looking at substitutes and complementary goods. Taste and expectations. That's looking at marketing and advertising. That will change the demand curve to shift it either to the right or to the left. Now let's look at supply. Supply is looking at firms, and supply is focused on the law of supply, which is a direct relationship between the price of a product and the quantity supplied. If you notice the supply table, you notice as the price of a good increases, suppliers are willing to supply more in the market. The factors that will cause the supply curve to increase or decrease to the left or the right are input prices. Those are things to make a good or service. Technology. These are looking at, technology is focused on the amount to produce a good. For example, technological advancement will usually always increase supply because it makes it easier and cheaper to produce. Number of sellers in the market will also increase supply. Expectations. So you'll notice that firms, if they expect the price to increase in the future, firms are going to be more willing to supply more now. Later when the price is higher. Now let's put them both together and when we have what's called equilibrium. If you take this market right here, you notice the equilibrium price is $3 and the quantity is 15 units. Now, if the price changes, let's say the price is $5 at a store. You notice at $5, there is 25 units on the shelf, because that's where it hits the supply curve, and there are only 10 units people want. There's going to be a surplus of the shelf because the price is much higher than the equilibrium. Let's look at an example here. Market for hybrid cars. So you got the price, you got the quantity. There's an increase in the price of gas. So if there's an increase in the price of gas and gas becomes more expensive, you'll notice that that individuals are not going to be willing to buy those gas guzzlers, those big SUVs. So they're going to be more willing to buy hybrid cars. So the demand for hybrid cars will increase to the right, which will cause, here's the new equilibrium, which will cause the price to increase and the quantity supplied to increase as well, because it's a movement along the supply curve. But you notice that the demand shifter is the one that increased. So these are the concepts of supply and demand. Now let's look at elasticity. Elasticity is looking at how consumers respond to price changes. Elasticity is a measurement of how consumers and how sensitive they are to price changes. You notice that consumers are very sensitive to price changes, and there's two types of goods that we need to focus on: an inelastic good and an elastic good. Let me get to a definition here for you. Let's go to the determinants of elasticity. Here are the determinants right here. These are very important. The determinants of elasticity. Now, an inelastic good is when consumers are not very sensitive to the price change and they will accept the higher price. Examples of inelastic goods would be gasoline. And when you look at gasoline, we have to buy gasoline. So when the price of gas increases, you're kind of stuck buying it. So gasoline is classified as an inelastic good. An elastic good is when there's a large change, and when there's a change in the price and there's a large change in demand. So when we look at these determinants, you notice there's different determinants that will determine if the good is both inelastic or elastic. So the price elasticity of demand. So if there's many substitutes, it's elastic. If there's not a lot of substitutes, it's going to be inelastic. If the good is a necessity and the price increases, we're going to be stuck buying it, so it's an inelastic good. If the good is a luxury good, that will be more elastic. The more narrow we define the market, the more specific we are, that means we're not going to have many choices. That's going to be more inelastic. The broader we are in terms of how we define the market, so cookie dough ice cream would be an inelastic good, whereas the market for ice cream would be elastic. Time horizon. The more time we have to shop for good, the more the good will be elastic. The less time we have to shop for good, the more we're going to be stuck with the higher prices. Now let's look at revenue, total revenue. And total revenue is an interesting concept. When you look at total revenue, you'll notice that if the store raises prices on goods, and let's say it's an inelastic good, and if I raise the price on an inelastic good, consumers are going to be more willing to buy the good. So that means total revenue will increase. However, when we look at if it's an elastic good, and firms raise the price of an elastic good, consumers won't buy it, and total revenue will decrease. These are some of the concepts that we're focused on this week. If you need additional resources, please let me know, but I look forward to your effort this week.